Hello again, folks. It's Jeff Adler, continuing my video series. We're on chapter 31, if you can believe that. And today I'm just going to be off the cuff, easy breezy, lemon squeezy. Something that popped in my head in the shower. It's the way things go sometimes. As you can see, these videos are not coming hard and fast, only as I deem necessary or feel like doing them. But that's kind of the way I am. You might call that undisciplined. I call it, I don't care. Today I'm going to talk about something that is on my mind about all the craziness with regard to the presidential candidates on the left, and the general direction that the Democrat Party is taking, has been taking for a long time, but is taking now seemingly in large leaps. The green leap forward, as I've heard it called recently, basically emulating evolution. These people actually think they're evolving. They're the same as they've always been. We've said many times, Democrats are about theft of life, theft of property, theft of freedom. Nothing has changed. But their tactics change and their audacity changes. Just like in evolution, sometimes you have little baby steps and then all of a sudden there's a giant leap. Well, we seem to have taken a giant leap in the last few years, at least in terms of what they're willing to admit to. Now, ladies and gentlemen, as I've said in previous videos, one of the tools in the arsenal of the left, and this goes back to one of my very early videos a couple years ago, maybe chapter 3, 4, 5, somewhere in there, which was called Dorber. It's basically the systematic approach that liberals take to get away with or rationalize wrongdoing, and how they try to escape blame, how they avoid answering questions, hardball questions, etc. And one of those tools was called equivocation. It is a very nasty, insidious little tool that they have, and basically it goes something like this. We as liberals never admit to wrongdoing, but if we were to touch on that subject ever so lightly, we would be obligated to point out that the right does exactly the same thing that we do. Meaning that if we said or did something wrong, they did or said something wrong too. So, what right does the right have to criticize us, since there are people with glass houses shouldn't throw rocks? And on the surface, this tactic seems to work. What it's meant to do is stop debate. Liberals don't like to debate, and when they do, they hit below the belt, or they change the subject, or they pounce on some irrelevant fact, never actually talk about the facts because they're never in their favor. But it's really meant to stifle debate. It's really meant to stifle or silence criticism. If you are a right-winger and don't have the capability of fighting back, and somebody levels a finger at you, which the left loves to do, and says, you're guilty of this too, you may shut the hell up for fear of appearing to be hypocritical. The left of our minds never worries about being hypocritical. It's their lifeblood. Right-wingers do, because they have what they call a conscience, you might say, at least more of one. So it sometimes works. Equivocation leads to people saying, well, they're all the same. All politicians are the same. The left is the same as the right. The Democrats are the same as the Republican. The liberals are the same as the conservatives. I don't want any part of it. And they buy into this crap. The problem is nothing could be further from the truth. There is, as I've mentioned at least a dozen times, a matter of degree. If a right-winger, be he or she Republican, libertarian, conservative, what have you, does something right or wrong, there may be 10 liberals who do the same thing. If they do it to a certain degree of, malfeasance, the liberals will do it 10 times worse. It's not just a matter of quantity, but kind of quality, meaning the liberals will go way further down the road than a true conservative, say, would do it. So equivocation is nonsense. There is no comparison. And this can be proven 1,000 ways. One way I like to compare it is with regard to the mentality that the left and the right take to solve problems. The right wants to lift a tide, raise the tide, and lift all boats. The left wants to destroy the successful and the rich to make the less successful and rich feel better, or poor feel better about themselves. Destroying the rich doesn't actually make them richer. Destroying the successful doesn't make the unsuccessful more successful. It just makes them feel better about themselves. Whereas, rising the tide lifts all boats. Everyone improves. Everyone succeeds. Everyone does better. Or more people. Different attack. Take abortion. The right is for life. The right is for stopping the killing and murdering of babies. The left is for it. More and more. They're for abortion. They're for birthday abortion. And now they're for post-birth abortion, also known as infanticide or homicide. They're for death. We're for life. There's 1,000 ways I can explain this. But every time the left goes against the right, they're always on the wrong side of the issue. They're always on the wrong side of history. They're always on the bad side of a given argument. So anything they do, anything they say is always going to be in defense of a worse path than the right takes. Almost every time. Another way to explain it is with an actual set of facts. There's a gentleman who was on Mark Levin's television show on Fox, who is a producer and director from South Africa. He put out a movie that's on Netflix and cable, and not in the theaters, I don't think, called 8 Days. It's talking about the 8 days of period of life of a family, including the kidnapped girl who is sold out for sex trafficking. And this problem blew my mind. I knew this existed, but when he started throwing facts out, that upwards of 300,000 people, most 90% of which are girls, are sex trafficked currently now, that the numbers are rising, and just the whole industry is disgusting. Not just the rich, but mostly the rich can pay for this habit of either of buying girls for their own needs, and but also the functionaries, the pimps, the traffickers. These people are monsters. It's a huge, growing, and really, really bad and important subject that needs to be dealt with. And he chronicled his learning about the issue because he has it happen to his own sister firsthand. That the average time a girl is in a sex slave trade is 6 years, that they often do not live very long afterwards because of suicide and other things that occur to them. They get on drugs, they end up becoming prostitutes, but people, blame the prostitute itself or say it's just prostitution, not realizing where it all stemmed from. It's a huge, pernicious, disgusting industry going on right now. And he, from a first-hand perspective and doing all this research, said two things that were amazing to me. Trump, love him or hate him, is the only person who's actually got the issue of sex trafficking on his desk in the Oval Office. Obama did not. And more importantly, well, that's probably more important, but secondly, when he went around to all the cable news places and all the media outlets, Fox News was the only station that was interested in it. CNN, CNBC, or MSNBC, all shined him on. Don't talk about it. They're not talking about it in the presidential debates. It's a non-issue to them. Maybe because they don't want the connection of Epstein and Clinton to be made more public than it already is. Just as one example. I don't know. I don't really care. Point is that, Fox News is so biased. Fox News is this, that, and the other. Yeah, and that's right. And then they're also the only ones who care about sex trafficking, apparently. Not the same, folks. You want to call Fox News right-wing? Okay, well, then with that in mind, how come only the right-wing cable network took on this horrible and egregious industry and gave this guy a megaphone, a microphone, a loudspeaker to talk about it? Only Fox News. This guy was unequivocal about this. It wasn't maybe they kind of did, maybe they will, but no, shut down, only Fox. No other president, only Trump. He's spoken to Trump. He knows this as a fact. This is not like, he probably has it on his desk. He's probably going to work. No, it's always on Trump's mind. He knows this. So, there is no equivocation. That's horse hockey. It is crap. Anybody who tries to tell you that the left and the right are the same are blowing it up your skirt. Period. Now, another interesting part of this, I was thinking, was that growing up, one of my favorite things was collecting comic books when I was a teenager. And of course, of the comic books, my favorite was Marvel Comics. And I thought that Stan Lee was one of my heroes, at least not like role model heroes, like, an astronaut or a first responder, kind of a fireman or somebody. I mean, like, one of my favorites. Growing up, of course, you learn that a lot of these people that you liked in any given medium, whether it's TV or movies or comic books, so many of them are left-wing guys, gals, and it's very disappointing, as I've said before, being a right-winger in our culture today, which is run lock, stock, and barrel by the left. So whatever happens in the culture is basically their doing, including mass shootings. Sorry, just speaking truth, not my truth, the truth. It's a product of culture, not product of guns. That's a band-aid. That is a diversion. That is smoke and mirrors. But you have to go to movies, you have to watch television. You're constantly being bombarded by left-wing ideology, by groupthink, by this lemming-like march to the cliff, over the cliff into the sea, by one actor or actress after another, by one um, music person after another, by one professor in college after another. And that's all you hear constantly. You rarely hear your point of view. There's just a few outlets: Fox News, talk radio, a little bit of the internet in some cases. Um, and that's about it. Where there might be a majority of people thinking the way you're thinking. You know, it's tough. It's not easy to be a right winger. As we've also chronicled here, and Rush Limbaugh probably said it best, liberalism is the easiest thing in the world. You just say yes to everything. If you're a Republican, or especially a conservative, sometimes you have to say no. No is harder than yes. It just is. But learning that Stan Lee was not just a liberal, but he donated to the Clintons, you really just want to go to your comic collection and start ripping up issues. But compartmentalizing is a fact of life of right wingers. We often have to separate the entertainment value, which the liberals do give you. It's undeniable. They're talented and they can entertain you, from their politics, even if they're trying to shove it in your face at the time. If you read a comic book today, oh my God. I don't really anymore, but if you were to pick up a comic book today, you got male characters becoming female, you got gays and lesbians and transgenders, and it's like a mishmash of a social engineer's wet dream going on, and you're like, well, where's the comic part? Why, you're trying to indoctrinate me into these ideologies. What happened to plot, and what happened to storyline? At least back in the 70s when I was collecting, I only got a smidgen of politics, because they were afraid back then to pump it out like they do today, where they are basically in charge of everything, culture and otherwise, less afraid. But one of my favorite comic characters was Spider-Man. It was one of the oldest Marvel characters there is. It goes all the way back to 1962. He's a couple years older than I am, in fact. And he was one of my first superhero favorites. Superhero heroes. Always have been. Spidey and me go all the way back. So, there's a famous phrase from Spider-Man comic books. I don't know if it was invented by Stan Lee or Jack Kirby or whoever it was that. Oh no, it wasn't Jack Kirby. It was I'll think of his name. But anyway, the other guy who invented Spider-Man with Stan Lee, or if it was somebody else that they stole the idea from. But this famous phrase is now quite popular in our culture because of the Spider-Man movies and all this other stuff. And I'll talk about that phrase and what it means, and why I'm surprised that the left even brings it up today. Part 2. See you then.